I'm Francisca Sena Benega. My presentation is on understanding poverty in the UK or in the United Kingdom. So I'm going to talk about an evaluation of definitions, different definitions, their theoretical explanations, and historical change. So what we want to start with is understanding poverty in the UK. So we say poverty is a multi-dimensional and socially constructed concept. Extends beyond income to include living standard and social participation. Definitions are not neutral. They reflect political and ideological priorities. Evaluations. Different definitions produce different measurements and policy responses. Poverty is therefore both an economic and social phenomenon. It's been looked at Alcock 2022. And then with the picture right there at the right side of the presentation, telling detailed explanation of poverty. The first one we want to look at is absolute poverty. Its definition, evaluations, and judgments. Definition is being defined as the inability to meet basic physical needs. And when we talk about basic physical needs, we are talking about food, water, and shelter. And then we can look at the picture right at the side of my presentation, how absolute poverty really looks like. It measured using fixed subsistence thresholds commonly used in global poverty comparisons. Evaluation strength provides a clear objective benchmark. Limitations fails to reflect changing social norms and expectations. In the UK, the underestimate deprivation links to social exclusion. Judgment on this absolute poverty. Limited analytical values in advanced economics by Giddens, 2018. We look at relative poverty. It's defined as income below 60% of median household income. It measures poverty in relation to societal standards widely used in UK policy frameworks. Evaluations we look at it captures inequality and social exclusion effectively. Criticisms may overstate poverty during economic growth, however, reflect the reality that poverty is relational, not absolute. Judgment. Most appropriate measures for contemporary UK society. And we reference this from the Department for Work and Pension 2023. Social consensual poverty. It focuses on exclusion from customary social practices and norms based on Townsend's concept of relative deprivation. Emphasis participation, dignity, and quality of life. Evaluations. Strength highlights lived experience and social stigma. Limitation relies on subjective and culturally variable measures. However, it provides deeper insight into social exclusion. Judgment. Essential for understanding non-material aspects of poverty. Structural explanation of poverty. That's our next slide. Structural explanation of poverty. It attributes poverty to systemic economic and social inequalities. Key factors include labor market conditions, wage structures, housing costs, linked to broader capitalist economic system. Evaluations. Strong empirical support, into bracket, example, persistence of in-work poverty, explains patterns across social groups and regions. Criticisms may underemphasize individual agency. Judgment. Most comprehensive explanation of poverty in the UK can be looked at in ALCOG 2022. Cultural explanations of poverty. Suggests poverty is sustained through values, norms, and behavior. Culture of poverty tenses emphasis in intergenerational transmission. Evaluation. Attempt to explain long-term and persistent poverty, however, criticized for victim blaming and lack of empirical validity. Overlook structural constraints shaping behavior. Judgment. Limited explanatory power without structural concept. Murray 2026. So if we look at the right side corner of my presentation, we are talking about the poverty circle, which we say from family in poverty goes round to children will grow up in poverty. It's significantly disadvantaged in education and skills. It affects them. When it affects the family, children get to be affected, and then their education and skills get to be affected, and they struggle in their getting of job, and then it moves on upwards to fail to escape the poverty skills, and then it goes rounds like that. Let's continue to look at individual explanations of poverty. Individual explanation of poverty focuses on personal responsibility and decision making. Factors include education, skills, health, and lifestyle. So it all depends on your lifestyle that explain individual poverty. If your education, your skills, how you live your lifestyle, and your health, it explains how poverty or how poor you are. Evaluation highlights role of agency and personal circumstances. However, oversimplifies poverty by ignoring structural inequalities, risks reinforcing stereotypes of the poor. Judgment, practical explanation, insignificant in isolation. Giddens 2018. Evaluation of poverty in Britain or the United Kingdom. We have the that is the 1945, that's high poverty, minimal state intervention. Then we move on to the post, which is from 1945, welfare state, reduced poverty and inequality. Another post 1980s, that's neoliberal policy increased inequality. Evaluation demonstrate influence of economic policy and political ideology. Shift from collective welfare to individual responsibility. Rise of in-work poverty reflects structural labor changes. Lower 2015. So we have key historical events and public perceptions. Under Great Depression, mass unemployment and then visible poverty happened. Post-war welfare state, poverty reframed as collective issues. From 2008 financial crisis and COVID-19 exposed structural vulnerability. Evaluations. Events shape both material conditions and social attitudes. Increasing stigma reflects political and media narratives. Poverty increasingly viewed as individual failures. Judgment. Public perception is socially constructed and historically contingent. That's Joseph Rowntree Foundation 2024. Then we'll look at our conclusion to my presentation. We talk about relative poverty is complex. All we are saying is poverty is complex, dynamic, and socially constructed. Relative and social definition best reflects United Kingdom's realities. Structural explanations provide the strongest analytical framework. Historical change demonstrates the role of policy and ideology. Final judgment. Effective responses require addressing structural inequality and social exclusion. So we have my reference says down here. That's it. Thank you so much for having time to listen. Thank you.